Hey guys, so I figured I'd go off of the original PowerPoint for this one. So our next topic is population growth. So hopefully you remember what a population is. So that's going to be all the individuals in the same area at the same time. So if we're looking at a mouse and we have another mouse, another mouse, another mouse, so we have a mice population, those are going to be in the same area at the same time. So looking at this graph, it's going to show us the change of the population over time. So you can see how the population grows from about 0 to 3.5-ish, and then it starts going down, then it goes back up. So I want you guys to start thinking about what are some things that are going to control this population and make it go down or make it go up. What are some of those factors that are going to change the population? So how does population grow? So population growth is extremely fast, so it is exponential. So if you look at the side here, you can see we start with 1, then we go to 2, then our next row, we're gonna go to 4. So on the third row, we have 4 of them. How many are in the fourth row? So then we go to 8, so we double. So then start to think about how many would there be in the 7th generation, etc. So just keep going. So looking at a population growth, you definitely want to know that it makes a J-shaped curve. You will definitely see this on a test in the future. So population growth is a J-shape. So it starts off a little bit slow and then it goes extremely fast because each time it is doubling. So is a population limited? So if there are no factors that are going to affect a population, it will keep growing. But is that realistic? No. So we have some kinds of limiting factors that I told you to think about before. So limiting factors are going to include availability of food. So if there is not enough food, the population will decrease. If there is an abundance of food, the population is going to increase. So disease. So if there is something that is going to decrease the population. Predators, so obviously that's also going to decrease the population. It will increase the predator population though. Lack of space, so not having enough room to be able to grow and develop. So things like bacteria, they get too claustrophobic, they're not going to keep growing their population. So these are just some of the limiting factors, but what it does to the graph is we go from this J shape to what we call an S-shaped curve. So you definitely want to know this as well. So you can see, bam, we have some kind of limiting factor. So maybe we ran out of food. So that's going to make our population level off. Then the population may decrease a little bit, which means that there's going to be more food available. So then the population will go back up a little. But then, bam, yet again, we start to run out of food. So then it goes back down. Then more food becomes available. And then, bam, yet again, it will go down because the food availability goes down as well. So we would have played a fun game called Bears in the Forest where everybody in the class would have pretended to be a bear. And you have the potential to have little bear cubs. So basically the game would have showed that the limiting factor in this case would have been food. Without enough food, the population cannot survive. So only the ones that are most successful getting the food are going to be the ones that live on and have cubs. Those that cannot get the food do not survive, so they cannot have bear cubs. So what we call this is our carrying capacity. So this is going to be the number of organisms the environment can support indefinitely. So this is going to be before we hit that peak. So this will be really close to that peak, but right before we hit it. So this is the number that we can sustain no matter what. So there's enough food, there's enough shelter for all of these organisms. If we go above that, there's not enough. So you can see every time we go above that carrying capacity, the population is going to drop back down. So looking at predator-prey relationship and how the carrying capacity is related to that. So you can see that we have the rabbits are the blue line. So as the rabbits decrease, the wolves are the red line. They're also going to decrease as the rabbits increase. The wolves are then going to increase, etc. So they're going to follow each other's paths. The rabbits are going to have a higher carrying capacity than the wolves. So think about why would they have a higher carrying capacity? Just think about that for a second. So what's going to happen if we run out of the rabbits? So if the rabbits had a lower carrying capacity than the wolves are not going to have any food, so they're going to die. So the rabbits have to have a higher carrying capacity than the wolves. So if we're looking at predator-prey relationships, you'll notice that the rabbits, or the ones that are the prey, are going to have a higher number of organisms than the predator. So looking at reproductive patterns, so there's two different types. There's slow versus rapid. So rapid is going to be just how it sounds, so having many offspring that don't need much care, whereas slow is going to be very few offspring with lots of care. So going into a little bit more detail, so rapid, as we said, this is going to be many young. So these young tend to be much smaller, so things like mosquitoes, flies, bees, etc., things that are small. So the parents are not going to care for the young. Basically, once they're born, you're on your own kind of thing. They tend to reproduce much earlier and have a shorter lifespan. So then when we're looking at a slow life history pattern, it's going to be the opposite. So larger species, so it takes them much longer to mature. They reproduce later in life because they have a longer life. So as humans, we're going to fall into the slow life history pattern.